Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello!
Hello. We are live, and we are going to be discussing our October book of the month, which is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. The cover for this book is gorgeous. I'm so excited to dive in and discuss all of our thoughts. My name is Gabby, and this is my channel if you guys want to introduce yourselves.
My name's Molly, and my channel is Little Blue Bookworm.
I'm Emily, and my channel is the nerdiest bookworm. I can't talk.
We're fine. And both of their channels are linked down below if you want to go and check them out. Thank you so much for joining us on this week of Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was on Thursday and now like the Black Friday holiday weekend. So if you're taking the time to join us, we appreciate it. If you want to ask questions, you can comment them down below in the chat, or you can ask on Twitter. And the hashtag that we're using is down below in the description. Do you guys want to start with some of your initial thoughts while we're waiting for people to like join in and stuff?
Sure. Okay, so first, let's put the disclaimer out for a trigger warning because this definitely deals with a lot of mental health stuff. And personally,
Yeah.
like as someone who's experienced mental health, I'd say there definitely should have been a trigger warning at the beginning of this because like when go through the same kind of thought process I know I have with my mental health, but initially I thought there should be a trigger warning at the beginning, but otherwise I thought the book was beautiful. The way John Green wrote it, I can't even put to words how I feel about my mental health, but John Green did this beautifully, and I can really connect to this book, and I am so thankful for this book to finally be able to put how I feel into words. So those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah.
Do you want to go next, or do you want me to go?
You can go, Molly.
Okay, so I really, really liked this book. I'm a huge fan of John Green, but I didn't know like how this book was gonna go. I didn't really know much about it before I started reading it. But it was honestly just so amazing. Definitely one of the top John Green books. I really think he like captured what that type of mental illness is like, and as someone that dealt with similar things. It was really nice to read that, and I think he did a really good job with it.
Yeah. I definitely agree. This was one of the books that like you said before, is definitely in one of my top three, like John Green books. Like it's The Fault in Our Stars, Paper Towel, and Turtles All the Way Down. This book is definitely up there for me. And I was worried about how he was going to follow up The Fault in Our Stars because it was this like huge book that completely and entirely blew up his career. And I actually got to see him on his tour for Turtles All the Way Down with Hank Green. And one of the things that he mentioned when Looking for Alaska came out was that there was like four people at the local bookstore, which is Anderson's for me, at his signing when the book came out. And like some of them were people that were like his publisher or people who like worked for him or like his coworkers or people who worked alongside of him, something like that. And there was like nobody there. And seeing how much he's blown up because of The Fault in Our Stars, he has now this sort of precedent to live up to, or this story to live up to. And I definitely think that he fulfilled that, and he told a story that you could very much tell through the writing was really important to him because he was writing about his own mental illness. And you can tell the work and the effort that went into the story and crafting that and telling a story that was genuine to what he went through and to other people's experiences as well. So I really, really liked that. And I saw a lot of myself in. I think that the beautiful thing about this book is that it gave people who could possibly be going through what Ace is going through, but not really diagnose it as OCD or really know what it is that they're going through, a character to relate to and to be able to see themselves in this way. Because I feel like there aren't a lot of mental health books that deal with OCD in the way that John Green discusses it in terms of like thought spirals. And I just thought it was really interesting. And I thought it was really well crafted and described really well. And you're able to really understand what it was that Asa was going through, which
Well,
I
I
think is
think
really
that's
important.
I think that's a good point with the thought spirals, because you read books with mental health and stuff, but thought spirals are like a big thing that I can relate to, and I'm sure other people can too. So I think it was really great that he really focused on that in this book, and they felt very real. Like they weren't like, oh, nobody thinks that. Like, I've thought it, things like that. It
Yeah,
was
like
cool.
I love how he addressed. He was like through her. He was like, you know how a person has this one random thought. Well, I have that one random thought, and instead of just going away, it keeps going over and over again, and it keeps repeating and repeating. And this is such a realistic thing for mental health, like in mental health issues. It's so like realistic, and I'm so like thankful for this book in all honesty. Like I'm coming from a different opinion. I'm not the biggest John Green fan. I loved his few other works, but my probably least favorite book of his was The Fault in Our Stars because I'm just not. But like, so I'm coming a different opinion. Whole book had book. It's so good. Many people could John connect to this book. He just did an amazing job with it.
Yeah. Definitely, because I feel like it's because he's dealing with subject matter that's a lot more relatable in a way, because you're dealing with mental health. It's something that a lot more people can connect to, whereas like with The Fault in Our Stars, you may know people who had cancer, or maybe you've possibly gone through it yourself, but if you're one of those people who hasn't, it's harder to sort of connect to like the struggles that the characters are going through. And so obviously, you know, that's a book where a lot of people liked it just because it was so beautiful. And that's one of the things I love about John Green and his books is the writing style of it. With his books, he has these like really beautiful metaphors and these lines that just stick with you. And then there's a completely and entirely other different parts of the story that have to deal with like Star Wars fan fiction. They're completely entirely humorous, and it's just such a nice balance between the two. And it seems almost completely entirely unrealistic because you have these beautiful verses and then something that's completely entirely ridiculous, and the two of them just completely juxtapose each other because they're so different. But that's the thing that you love about John Green books, because there's not really a lot of authors that can balance the two so nicely the way that he can.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
John Green has every single one of his books, I feel like, have, and like definitely his beginning works had like the same like arc, kind of like boy meets girl, fun, like from different situations, like, and each of the boys have a thing. Like who, I forget which book of his, but someone was obsessed with dead people's last words. Was that
was looking for
that was
Alaska.
for Alaska. That was Pudge, wasn't it? Yeah, Miles.
Yeah. And so like I saw how he took like his old characters and added them to this new character. Oh my god, Justin. I'm forgetting names already. Jeez. But like he has this thing with the stars, and I thought that was so cool. Like this was like something I was really fascinated by his thing. Like dead, like people's last words is such like a weird thing to be obsessed with. Stars, it was like so cool and romantic, and I was like, okay, this is a great thing to be obsessed with.
Yeah, I think his books are just so real. Like I know a few people that are just like, I don't relate to his books at all, and I was like, how? you know? And I think it's really impressive. I read this thing the other day that somebody was talking about how he wrote this book from a teenage girl's perspective. Like John Green was never a teenage girl, but he captured it.
That's it.
So perfectly.
No,
like,
I completely agree.
Do that?
Like people can't write from the opposite gender sometimes, but John Green is like,
he's just like,
so masterful. And it's not even like he has a teenage daughter either. He has a son. I believe he has a younger daughter though too. So it's amazing how he's able to even like grasp that experience so well, and he writes it and you're reading it as a teenage girl and you're just like, can't even believe it. And I think that's one of the things that's just so amazing is how he's able to do that and like dig into these characters so well and just so beautifully tell their stories and make them feel like real, genuine people. And the thing that's just so weird is that there was this thing where like The Fault in Our Stars came out and everyone was all like John Green, and then he disappeared for a few years. And Turtles All the Way Down comes out, or it's like starting to come out and we're getting more news about this book. And there's a whole bunch of people that are like so anti-John Green that just don't get into his books. And like, I don't understand it because they're what got me into YA. And I feel like if I hadn't read The Fault in Our Stars and picked up all of John Green's other books, I wouldn't have probably tried to expand out and like read more YA titles and sort of like find myself and branch out a little bit more. And it's just so hard, like, for me to understand why people don't like his books, because there's just something so inherently beautiful about them and the way that they're crafted. That when I see other people say that they don't like them, it's just interesting because it has to sort of do with like what perspective are you coming from. But for me, like, I love his books, and I was so excited about this one when it was announced.
Exactly. Like, I find it so hard to believe that you don't find anything that you can like or relate to in his books, because I relate to them so hardcore. Like, I find something in all of his books that I'm just like, oh my god, that's me. So I just find it so hard to believe that, like, even if you don't relate to it, like you said, you don't find it like just beautiful. Like, the quotes that come out of his books are just amazing. You know, I just find it so hard to believe that some people just, completely hate on him.
Yeah. So let's dive into some of the questions from Sarah Night Owl. She's sending us a whole bunch of them in. The first one, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but to get more into detail with it, ranking his books based on how much you enjoyed them.
Like what, top 3 or all of his books?
Maybe, do you want to do all of his books? Because I feel like for me, like that, I don't know. For me, I kind of have an idea as to where I would go.
Yeah, me too. Okay. Who wants to start? Like,
I guess I can go.
Yeah, you want to start?
I would say that for me, like, The Fault in Our Stars, Paper Towns, and Turtles All the Way Down are all sort of together. Like, I feel like I all like them equally. So it's hard to sort of pick where I would put like 1, 2, and 3, because those are all just sort of together, and I love, like I said, all of them equally. Then I would say that Looking for Alaska is probably below those, and then An Abundance of Catherine's probably is my least favorite out of all of them. I'm trying to think if there's any book that I'm forgetting.
I mean, like, besides his like companion novels, like with the Will Grayson.
Oh yeah, Will Grayson, yeah.
To the Let Us Know, Will Grayson.
But I read Let It Snow like every winter. It's so much fun. That's like one of my favorite holiday books.
I need to get.
But Will Grayson, I think, is probably above An Abundance of Catherine's, and Let It Snow maybe is above Will Grayson. I don't know, but like I've enjoyed most of his books. Just like for some reason, I didn't really get into An Abundance of Catherine's. For whatever reason, when I was reading it, it just like didn't click with me. But I think maybe if I reread it, I would maybe enjoy it a little bit more.
Molly, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So my favorite John Green book is Looking for Alaska. It has been since I've read it. I just love that book so much. And I reread it over the summer because it was my summer reading book, and just like I love it so much. The quotes that come out of it, the characters, like it's just great. So that's my top, and then probably Turtles, and then Tifios, but those two are like super close. And then Paper Towns. And I actually haven't read An Abundance of Catherine's yet. I started it. I just never had the chance to finish it. So I can't technically rank that one yet. But that's my ranking for the rest of them.
Okay, for me, I'm definitely coming from a different perspective from the two of you, but because like I wasn't the biggest fan of John Green books. I only got on board because it's Fault in Our Stars, and like everyone was like John Green. But my top one definitely has to be Turtles All the Way Down. Like, just so good, and I felt so connected with it. The second one would probably have to be Looking for Alaska, because that book was just so beautiful, and like the quotes, like you said, Molly, but like it was just so. I love that one too. Like Turtles and Looking for Alaska are really close. Then I'd have to say, like the last three are like kind of close. I think I'd have to say Paper Towns next. I think the movie like ruined it a little bit for me, because I've had a fun time like reading it, like especially the scene when they went to SeaWorld and were dancing. Like I like that a lot.
Because they cut the SeaWorld scene, which
because they couldn't have the copyright or something like that. But then we had then Paper Towns, and then The Fault in Our Stars, just for the sole fact of like it was so sweet to be true, and like it was a good book. I'm not the biggest fan of contemporary, so like I'm a little biased. But like some of the quotes and stuff was just so like his combination of funny and sweet is like it works out perfectly. And then Abundance of Catherine's was kind of boring in my opinion. It just didn't have that spark of his other books. And then Let Us Know and Will Grayson I haven't read yet. But I wanted to read Will Grayson like 2 years ago, and my mom was like, nope, you can't read that, because she had read that. And I was like, okay, thanks.
Yeah, I just went through, and I think I read The Fault in Our Stars, I think like a little bit before the movie came out, and then I immediately was like, I need to read all of his books. And so I spent like the entire summer then after the movie came out, like binging through all of his books and trying to finish them like as fast as I could, because like I read The Fault in Our Stars and I just loved it because it was the first John Green book that I ever really experienced. So that's one of the reasons why I like have so much of a connection to it. And then from there, I just kept reading more of his books, and yeah.
Yeah.
So next question is to choose a theme song for the book. These are always really hard because I can never think.
I'm always so bad at these.
Same. I can't go to my playlist because my phone is
right. I'm like looking through stuff because I have my iTunes library. Because I'm
looking
using
through
different
and I
computer.
don't even know.
I
feel like there is a song that would like fit it really well, but I don't know what that song is.
I know how you feel. I know what song I'm trying to.
Maybe like an Ed Sheeran song.
Yeah, I could actually see that a little bit.
Right? To Save Myself or something like that.
Yeah. To sort of segue and talk about something from the tour, there was this moment where John Green had the entire audience and Hank Green came out and they sang this song. It wasn't so much of a song as like a repeating verse. And I don't know if you guys saw it. He talked about it in one of his videos that he recently uploaded, Vlog Brothers video. And it's basically just a repeating verse that is, oh my gosh, what is it? We're here because we're here because we're here because we're here. And it's basically just repeating over and over and over. And he sort of explained how that plays into his book a little bit because he was going out with another like author, or I forgot who it was at the moment, but he was having a little bit of a thought spiral and he just wasn't in a very good mood, and he was hearing that and it completely changed his perspective, and just like hearing that and sort of what it had to do with the book and how it influenced John Green and sort of a little bit of the story and his mentality, I think was interesting. So I'll leave the video down below where he talks about that because I just described it horribly, but if you watch that video and you know what I'm talking about, you'll get it. But it was a cool thing to experience on tour because it was just a really like a beautiful and emotional moment, and you could tell how much he was impacted by it when he was speaking about it in person and even like watching the video again.
Yeah, I think actually the quotes would fit the story more like than songs. Something like we're here because we're here, like, you know, stuff like that. I feel like that fits it more than any songs you could come up with, but that might also be because I'm terrible at questions like this.
Yeah. So. And maybe we'll think of something as we're going into the live show a little bit more, like something will just pop into your head.
Yeah.
So like a favorite.
I'm like,
no, go ahead.
New songs, and I'm like,
yeah.
I know what song it is, but I no idea what this song is.
Yeah. Like, you know it's there, but you don't know what it is.
Especially because John Green, his soundtracks for like The Fault in Our Stars and Paper Towns are some of like the best movie soundtracks that I've ever listened to. Like, they're just such good songs, and they all just like perfectly fit the scenes that they're in. That like if Turtles All the Way Down was adapted into a movie, I would just like imagine the score and it would be insane. So I know that I want to do that question justice because that's one of the things that I love about those movie adaptations is because their like scores and the soundtrack and just all the songs are phenomenal compared to like every other single YA adaptation.
There's a segue right there. Do you guys think Turtles would make a good adaptation? Or do you think it should be left alone as a book?
This is hard because John Green, I know, has been going through some stuff with looking for Alaska, where he's been trying to get adapted, but the rights once they were sold or whoever they were sold to, like it didn't work out very well because I know we got one director and then like nothing happened for a year, so we got another director like exactly a year later, and then like nothing's happened, and a lot of people keep asking if it's going to be a movie, and it's like not happening. That I feel like after going through that to get this to be adapted into a movie as well. Like, I would like to see it because I know all of John Green's movies have been phenomenal, but you would have to sell the rights to the correct people, and the story would have to be told in the proper manner because you would have to get into those details of seeing like what it is that Asa goes through, because it is a little bit gruesome at times when you're like dealing with the whole like wound and everything like that. If you are somebody who's like a little bit more faint apart, like that could be a lot to see, but you need to depict it that way. Because it's so important to her storyline, so it would need to be told in the proper manner. But I feel like it could be a good adaptation. It could send a really important message because with people who read books, like there is such a small amount of us, there aren't a lot of people that read, that when you put something on screen, it's naturally going to have more of a widespread audience, and it's going to have a greater impact because there's going to be more people that are possibly going to have access to it or hear about it. And spreading that kind of message, I think, could be really important if it was put in a movie adaptation, but it would have to be done correctly.
See, here's the thing, like if they did a movie adaptation with it, it'd be so difficult because you have to get inside of her head. And like she, you know, those little battles where she has another person where it's like okay, you don't need to clean, checked it, and the other person's like, no, you need to clean it. What if you have C diff? And like it's that back and forth thing, and like it's so it would be so hard to like to show that on the screen. Like the only way I can think if to be able to show it properly is if they had another person have the same actor but like have her different.
Yeah,
like,
have her like talking to herself in her head.
Oh, that would be so interesting.
Yeah,
but you definitely have to do that type of thing right, because otherwise it could come off as like super cheesy and weird. Yeah, you definitely have to do that right. I think Turtles would be really hard to adapt on screen. Like if the right people had it, I'm sure they could do an amazing job. And I think if the right people did have it, I would love to see it, but I think it would be really hard to do. And I almost kind of want to just be like, don't touch it, leave it alone. But like you said, Gabby, it spreads this like really important message that a lot of people aren't going to get because they're not reading the book. So I think there's like pros and cons to it, and I'm kind of like in the middle of what I would want.
Yeah, same here, because I would like to see it, but then at the same time, like I've had my experience with adaptations, Shadowhunters, where I just don't trust the people behind the adaptation, and I just like know that if it got into the wrong hands, it would just be a hot mess, and no author deserves to have that happen to their adaptations. And you have to be very lucky if you're an author to get an adaptation where you're able to feel really involved in it, because a lot of authors sell their rights and then they just have no involvement at all, and that really sucks. And I know that's a big thing that a lot of the YA community has been talking about recently with Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda and The Hate U Give both being adapted, and a lot of people having that discussions about that, and like the way that the characters are put on screen and all the changes and little things that are made, and how the author just has like no control over that. So it's hard, especially with a story like this, where you want to see those details there, but you have to have the right people. And so to talk about something on a little bit more lighthearted note, did you guys have like a favorite funny moment or a touching moment, a moment that you really liked specifically?
I liked anytime we talked about the Star Wars fan fiction.
Yeah, I just say that, like when they're in the Applebee's.
I like how the waitress like always knew that they had a coupon too, and she was just like, "Oh, you're back again."
And then there's the one time that they came in and like actually ate like a full meal, and she was just, that was great.
Yeah.
It was. I think my favorite part, like non-happy part, because of a lot of happy. The like that you hear that Davis and Noah turned their father in to tell their father was dead. I thought that was such like my heart
that
clenched. And like, and then the other scene was after like the few months later, after Azza was taking her a while, you physically could see the change. Like when the sentences that really got exact quoting, but it was like, I need to check my Band-Aid, but I will do that later. Talking to Daisy right now, and that just like that's when you see your change, and you really see, and that moment was just like, that was like so heartwarming. You can get over your mental illness, like you saw Azza in the beginning with this, it's always going to be a problem, but that in that moment I saw that like you can issues, and that your thoughts are not your thoughts are not actions. And that moment was that really reminded me of my own recovery journey, and like me getting over my own mental health issues, and like so that I really connected with and I really loved.
Yeah, and I really like that he painted that picture of like, you know, it still happens. Like she still gets these urges and still has these issues, but she found a way to kind of deal with it. Like it didn't go away and it's still a problem, but it doesn't control her anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that properly shows what mental health is and does to people, because like it never truly goes away. It's just part of who you are, but like you can learn to deal with it and to do better at it. And I think that was a really good thing for people to see.
Yeah. I also loved the way that John Green was very sort of, I don't know what the word is, but when he's talking about Aza and her best friend, I can't think of her name at the moment because it's been like about a month since I've read it, but when they're in the car together, Daisy, yeah, when they're in the car together and Daisy's pretty much talking about like, do you even know my sister's name, and do you know any of these things about me, and basically making Aza out to be like this total narcissist because she's so concerned about what's going on in her own head that she doesn't bother to look at anyone else's emotions or how anyone else is affected by what's going on around them and other people's circumstances rather than just her own. And I think that's so interesting because as someone who has mental health problems and has had to go through things like that, where you're so concerned about your own mental health and what's going on inside your head, that you sometimes lose the capability to show concern for others or be concerned for others, or you forget to show concern for others. And it's not intentional. It just sort of happens when you get so wrapped up in what's going on inside your own head. And I think it's really beautiful that she's able to sort of learn from that, and she's able to sort of have a moment where she really sees what it is that she's doing to her friend and sort of the distance that's growing between them because of that, and her being able to make that change and being able to show a little bit more concern for her friend and have a discussion with her friend rather than being so concerned about what's going on in her own head. Because I feel like if you're really talking about that and saying like, as a person who has mental illness, I'm not entirely perfect, or like I'm going through something and I still do have flaws, and sort of making the comment that, just because you have a mental health issue or something, that there is other things, and that your mental health doesn't only affect yourself, but it affects other people in your life as well.
Yeah, I think that was a really important scene too, because that, like you said, is a big part of mental illness, and it doesn't mean like you're a villain or you did something wrong. It just means like, you know, you got so wrapped up, and I think it was good that she was able to like talk to Aza about it and be able to, and Aza was able to like, wow, like, yeah, that's what's going on, and then take action to fix it.
Yeah. But her having that moment where she realizes it, I think was really nice, because it's important that you acknowledge that, because a lot of times when you do have mental health, you're so wrapped up in yourself that you don't realize that. And once you have that moment, it just kind of changes the way that you view things. And with John Green going through, you know, what it is that Aza goes through and telling the story, I definitely would have to believe that he probably had a moment like that himself, where he realized that and definitely wanted to incorporate it into the story, just because I think it's really important. And you don't see that in a lot of other mental health novels, because they're so focused on what it is that the character's going through that they don't acknowledge really how the character's mental health affects the other characters around them. You don't really see that in a lot of mental health novels. So I appreciated sort of seeing that other perspective.
I agree.
Sort of on another note, because I feel like there's so many things to discuss aside from questions. We were talking about this a little bit.
Another one of my, like, this is sliding into quotes a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, I was opening up to one of the pages. What page is it? If you guys have the books, like 211, I think actually a little bit of the better example for me, one of the things I want to talk about is 227, when Aza's in the hospital and she's having like the whole confrontation with herself, the way that it's written. One second. With the italics, that's page 228, where it says, you're just going to sanitize your hands and your mouth, please. Fucking think about something else. Stand up. I hate being stuck inside of you, in all caps. You are me. I am not. You are we. I am not. You want to feel better. You know how to feel better. It'll just make me barf. You'll be clean. You can be sure. I can never be sure. Stand up. Not even a person, just as deeply flawed line of reasoning. You want to stand up. The doctor said stay in bed, and last thing needed is a surgery. You will get up and will your IV card. Let me up out of this. And then it just kind of keeps going on and on and on for the entire page. And just the way that that was written, I just like kind of took a step back, and I was just really amazed by it, because you can really see how this thing inside of your head is like another person. and how it completely entirely takes over and controls your thought process, because Asa knows at this point that this is going to be relatively fatal to her, because she ends up basically like vomiting everywhere and ends up getting incredibly sick from doing this. And even though she knows those consequences and knows those repercussions, this thing inside of her head keeps telling her otherwise. And I just think that was so interesting the way that it was written, because you can really see the contrast between what is going on in her thought spiral and the way that it keeps sort of drawing her downward, and her own thought process, which is telling her otherwise, and, you know, what it is that she decides to listen to, and how mental health really does affect a person. I feel like you really was able to describe that really well, which we were talking about a little bit before, but I wanted to mention that specific quote because that was one moment that really struck me.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I think it was important, too, to show that, like, she thinks logically. Like, she knows, like, this is bad. I will get sick. This is not good. Like, I don't have C. diff, but, like, you know, this thought spiral continues, like you said, to drag her down. But, like, I think, like I said, it is important to show that she thinks logically, too. Like, she knows what she's doing isn't right, and she knows that this stuff is, you know, not, it doesn't exist, but she can't help it because that's what mental illness does to you. And I like that he showed that. He didn't like glamorize it in any way, but he did show, like, you know, she knows what's going on, it's just she can't help it.
Right, because a lot of times people who have mental health problems are stereotyped to just be like, not necessarily insane, but just like they don't know what's going on, and they're just completely helpless. That's not the case. And I like the way that he shows that, because she does know. It's just this thing that's sort of making her think otherwise. And I think it's important to show
what mental health illness is. Like, that's what it does, at least to certain people. It's not to me.
Yeah, definitely. Like, that scene was like so, like, I related to that one scene so much because disorder. My therapist was like, split the people up, split your into two different people, and that's what John Green's doing in the scene. He's two different people. That she is not her thoughts, and that scene just like I have never really related to a scene more because how he did it, and like this is how some people feel. This is mental health and mental illness, and how people with mental health issues are categorized as crazy sometimes, but these are her thoughts. That's not who she is. This is something she can't. She's driving. This is an analogy, but is driving a car, but she's not the driver. Her mental health issues are her OCD is the driver. She's either the passenger who has some control, or she's in the back seat. She has no say in the matter. And really see the debate between her mental illness. You see the debate, and it was just this.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good analogy, because when you think about it, if she's in the back, she's sort of like the backseat driver, where she's trying to say something, she's trying to control the situation, but she can't. And that's, I think, what's really interesting about the way that it's written, is that you can see like she wants to fight against this, but it's like she's trapped and has no control. So. Right. So on a little bit of a lighter note, do you guys want to do the sorting characters into Hogwarts houses?
Sure. Let's go.
Okay. So Asa.
This is hard.
Yeah, because I feel like John Green characters are so complex
that like they don't fit into one category.
Yeah. I could see her maybe being a Ravenclaw.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah,
she's like smart, you know.
Yeah. I think a Ravenclaw.
I'm like doing process of elimination. Like, it's like she can't be in Hufflepuff because like you saw that scene where she wasn't like being ever, and then and Gryffindor, she just isn't the bravest person. Slytherin, she doesn't seem too ambitious. That kind of like Ravenclaw.
Yeah, I think
she's definitely
Ravenclaw.
Ambitious. Yeah. As for Daisy, I feel like Daisy is Hufflepuff because she's very loyal to Asa.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Or Daisy. I'd say Daisy. Daisy. I'd say Hufflepuff.
Yeah.
Who else we have?
The boy, what's his name? Davis. Maybe Hufflepuff too?
He's a Hufflepuff. Yeah, because, like, he was just so, like, he was listening to her when, like, she doesn't really discuss her problems with anyone. Like, he just listened, and I was just like, oh.
Yeah.
I love their relationship.
Yeah, and also being, like, loyal to his brother and his father, even then, like, knowing. Then his little brother, we don't really get a lot from his little brother.
Yeah, we don't really know too much about him.
Yeah.
I mean, their dad would be in Slytherin.
Yeah, because his dad's really ambitious, and, like, the minute that he gets caught, he runs away. That's sort of, like, a Slytherin thing to do.
What about the lizard?
The Tuatara.
The lizard that cure all living.
Yeah. The Tuatara is nobody, like, that's the thing. Oh, speaking of that made me so mad. Is like, why, if you're a father, why would you leave all of your inheritance to a freaking Tuatara? It's like, because the Tuatara isn't technically a lizard, but, like, why would you leave it to, like, a reptile? Why would you? What?
Yeah.
Like, that was another thing where I read that and I was like, this just seems so John Green, because it's, like, so unrealistic,
so
but then, like, the rationale behind it.
Yeah.
Right, but then his rationale behind it, like, the Tuatara will live forever, and, like, to this, whatever the reason is like, he tried to explain it, and it's, you have 2 children.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. So I think those are, like, most of the characters. John Green books tend to have, like, a short cast of characters, which is nice, because you're able to get more intimate.
Yeah.
All of them. Okay.
Oh, I have this one thing I want to talk about real quick. The ending a little bit, but, like, this relates so much to the book and, like, other of his books. 276, there's this quote that I think it's like they're talking about endings, and it's like the problem with is that they're not either really happy or they're not. In real life, some things get better and some things get worse. Die, and like a way to describe, because John Green's books are, like, so realistic in a way. Like, the way he ends them, it's like you want to know more, but, like, that's the end of their story, but their life will go. Like, he makes them seem like real people. Was just like that's his endings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also thought it was really interesting sort of seeing, like, how it ended. Like, I know you're building up this entire relationship between Asa and Davis, and you're going back and forth because they're having all these moments, and then Asa starts to get freaked out, and so you're sort of seeing it, but you're seeing that he's gonna wait for her. And then the way that it ends, with him saying goodbye, Asa, no one ever says goodbye unless they want to see you again. And
yeah, I mean, I really liked their relationship throughout the book, but I also wasn't, like, I was kind of happy with the way he left it, because it was kind of like, it felt real, like everything in his books do. Like, it felt real. It wasn't like this story about how, like, love conquers mental illness, or, like, how everything works out perfectly in the end. Like, it could, because he said goodbye, and nobody says goodbye unless they want to see you again. But, like, you never know. And, like, I was okay with not knowing, because it felt so realistic.
And the way that he describes it, you remember your first love because they prove to you that you can love and be loved, that nothing in this world is deserved except for love. That love is both how you become a person and why. And that's just a really beautiful way of summing up their relationship and sort of dealing with how Davis was there for her throughout everything she was going through, but that wasn't, like, the thing that saved her. Like, she had mental illness, and then she found a boy, and suddenly, like, all problems fixed. And I feel like because John Green has a personal experience writing this book, he's going to be the one who's going to be able to write it well, and he's not going to fall into those tropes because he knows what it's like.
Yeah.
Like, instead of romanticizing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. She doesn't romanticize it, saying, like, a boy will sit you come to hellness. Like, start, like,
yeah. I also really liked the quote where he said, "It's quite rare to find someone who sees the same world you see." I forget what page it was on, but I just really like that quote because it resonates like deeply with me. Like, and I just think that's such a weird thing to think about, that like no matter how much you describe something to someone, or no matter how much you talk about it or how similar you guys are, like nobody ever sees the same thing you do, but you can find people who like it's compatible with, you know. I find that a really cool concept, and I just really liked that.
There's so many beautiful quotes in this book. Like you could go on for hours and hours and hours, because John Green is just like the king of writing these really beautiful quotes that like you will put like on your wall, or you could like frame, because they're just like so gorgeous.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I love about his books. And that's one of the things that I definitely expect, because I don't know what my expectations were going into this book. Honestly, like I expected the metaphors and I expected everything that it is that I love from a John Green book, but it just felt so much more improved in the fact that like not only is everything that makes a John Green book there, but the story itself is much more complex, and you're able to see a lot more inside Aza's head, and the characters are more developed, and you're telling a really like deep and important story, and you're just seeing like why it is that it took him so long to write this story, because it was something that was probably so emotional to him and something that he knew he needed to tell right. And I think he definitely accomplished that goal for himself.
And
I loved how he came up with.
Go ahead.
Okay. I loved how he came up with the title, like Turtles All the Way Down. Wondering, so confused why it was Turtles All the Way Down. Like, how did that relate to the story? And sort of this one little mini story in it, and like it was so out of the blue. It felt so well, and that's how he got his title. And it was like Turtles All the Way Down, man.
Yeah. And I remember. No, go ahead.
That's a kind of like what I was gonna talk about, is how like he has these random scenes in there that like really are random and shouldn't really, they're so small, but like they feel so significant. And like if you looked at his book in parts, it would seem like he's all over the place. Like, you know, we had that scene with like the scientist, and then the biologist or whatever he was, and then we have like the scenes in Applebee's, and like these random little scenes that really don't have much to do with like her mental illness or whatever, but they form the story and like make it more real. And you know, even though they're random, they're not, like they're placed in there really well. And I think that's what some people might not like about his books, but I think it makes them all the more real.
Because definitely, like when you think about a person's life, it's not just like the moments that specifically relate to their mental health that would tell their story. It's all of the moments that are maybe really minor and insignificant, but somehow play into that overall picture. And it's seeing that and reading the whole book and seeing how all those tiny little fractured pieces come together. It's really beautiful. And just, you have to have an author that's really good at doing that and not making it seem fractured, because it would be very easy to fall into that trap. But I don't think that he does.
No, he did a very good job.
Yeah. So sort of talking about Turtles All the Way Down, the title, also talking about the book cover, because there were a lot of mixed reactions to this cover, because a lot of people were definitely very much anticipating it once it was released. And we all got this cover and we're looking at this orange spiral and we're like, what the hell does that have to do with anything at all? Because we're expecting like turtles on the cover, because you know the title's Turtles All the Way Down. And then you get this beautiful spiral and you read the book and it's this moment where it's like, it all makes sense and it's just so perfect.
Yeah, I didn't get it kind of liked the cover. I just got it.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people were underwhelmed by the cover, but I liked it because it was just nice and simplistic, but it also like fit the story very well once you read it.
Yeah, I liked the cover. And even when it came out, I was like, oh, that's like kind of cool. Like it's simple and it doesn't really make sense with the title, but it looks cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize the spiral meant her spiral, like until you just mentioned. I was like, and then it makes sense now. It's like, okay, that's so cool. And like when you see the title, you'll be like about turtles. No, it's about this girl and her mental health and her boyfriend and like a friendship, and like it's so different from what you expect.
Yeah, and also
you get the like, turtle way down. Okay, what are you saying?
Yeah, no, but also like about the mystery too, which I thought was interesting, is that he has Aza's mental health, but he also has this mystery going on with Davis's father, and he And John Green also incorporates that into the story really well, where it doesn't seem like too out of place, because that's another like fractured piece, but it tells the story really well because you're seeing how she wants to investigate this, but then like Noah doesn't want her to, and like him giving her that money because he doesn't want it on his conscience, like that. All of that was like so insane, but it all fit together so well.
Yeah, and I like how
I want to talk about
we just like randomly found out where he was. Like, I mean, it wasn't random, but it was just kind of like all of a sudden in the midst of all this chaos, she like puts it together and she's like, oh yeah, by the way, your dad's here. All right, bye.
And she just happens to be right at that place like when she figures it out, because she's there for that like cool whole underground like art thing, which I just thought was like so convenient. But like, I don't know, I thought that was also kind of cool too, because she's like going out with her friend and she's doing something, and she's also able to like put two and two together, and it was nice. I liked it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Like this is a little minor thing, but this like little friendship, I don't know if you can call that, but like how he was like, I heard you had, and she's like, kind of, and he's like, well, here's a list of his notes that I found. And like you just see the little like exchange of words between, like, that warmed my heart.
Yeah. Did you like the blog that the Davis? I always want to keep calling him Noah. I have no idea why. Did you like the blog that Davis ran with like all the quotes?
Yeah, I really liked that.
Yeah, that was the best.
I liked how she found it, and then he knew that she found it and was just kind of like starting to write to her.
Yeah. I thought that was cute. And also like the fact that it was a place where he could keep like his own personal thoughts without having to worry about being spied on, because obviously with his father being missing, people are going to look through like every single one of his files and all of his social media and like everything they possibly can to try to get down to the bottom of this mystery. So like his entire life is pretty much shaken up. To have this one site where he can really tell his own story, I thought was really beautiful and nice.
I agree.
One of my favorite little like things of his was when like, okay, two of them, when he was like, I know she's reading this. Hi. That was adorable.
Yeah.
So cute. Yeah.
And the second one was like right before she started reading, was like I forget, I was able to see, she's able to see the break through the clouds, like, and a good writer like Davis, like John, like I love Davis's writing and like little prompts, and I thought that little like blog thing was so sweet, something he had just to himself, like Abby said, and it was just so adorable.
Yeah.
So speaking,
I see you flipping through the book.
Yeah, because I was trying to find it. I opened up to this one thing, and it sort of reminded me of one of the things I wanted to talk about. We mentioned sort of what happened with Daisy and Asa a little bit, but one of the things we didn't really talk about is the character of Alaya in Daisy's Star Wars fan fiction, and how that was sort of supposed to be like a personification of Asa, and how much that really upset her, because she was able to sort of really see herself in the story and see the way that her friends saw her. And that's sort of how they have this whole initial confrontation that leads to that car accident. And I thought, what did you guys think about that? Like, did you think Asa was correct in her perspective? Did you think it was interesting, like, sort of how they resolved that, or like having the discussion about it?
Yeah, I don't know. I find it very hard to like form an opinion on that, because it definitely is like hurtful on Aza's part, because, you know, she's not doing it to be a bitch or doing it to be evil. But, you know, because she's so wrapped up in her mental illness, it seems like she's coming off that way to other people. And so like I kind of find it hard to be mad at Daisy, because I'm sure that's like how she saw it, because she didn't know the extent of like what was going on. But I also feel bad for Asa, because like that's horrible to have somebody do that, and to have somebody like write that out everywhere that like anybody can see it, and to know that like your best friend thinks of you like that. So I feel like I can see both sides, and I just feel bad for everyone.
Yeah. And Because, like, one of the things that Daisy writes, like, in the comment section when Ace is looking at it, Elia wasn't a bad person, just a useless one.
Yeah, like, that's
And, like,
that's
one
hurtful.
comment mentioning in all caps, I love to hate Elia, thank you for bringing her back. And that she was, like, ruining things. And how she was just sort of in the way and how much that really upset her. And Davis had mentioned like how we read all of it, and you sort of need to read all of it and sort of see the perspective and then having the conversation about it. But one of the things I think that was the worst about the car accident and all of that culminating up to it is like, for one, I wasn't expecting it at all. Like, I felt like I knew something bad was coming, but I like didn't know what. And so I saw them in the car and I knew that they were arguing. My initial thought is like, oh my God, something bad's gonna happen here. And like the minute that it happened, I was like, yeah, like this needed to happen because something bad always happens in a John Green book. Like there's some huge pinnacle climax. So that happened. And then like Ace is going out and like she's like really seriously hurt. But the one thing that she wants to go for and like she can't get is her father's cell phone. And then ends up being like completely destroyed, even though all the photos and things are back up. Like to have that hurt.
Yeah.
On that note, with the car crash, like John Green has I don't know, a weird sense, not of humor, but like, it's hard to explain. If she hadn't got into that car crash and she would never eat the hand sanitizer, where would she be? That was my whole thought process when she first ate the hand sanitizer. I was like, oh my God, something's going to happen to her. Like, I was initially going off the trail that she's not going to be able to stop eating this hand sanitizer to hopefully get this clean feeling. But when they got to the hospital, like, have her, like, that whole conversation with her inner self, she saw, like, you need to be clean. You need to be clean of C. diff. You have to make sure to eat this hand sanitizer. And so, like, car crash, what would have happened? So, like, you're thankful for that car crash because you saw her because she was in the hospital and her mom saw her. But like, what if she didn't get in that car? This book on what ifs, but like outside with all the outcomes.
Yeah, I definitely agree because I think it's interesting to think about what would happen if she hadn't gotten that car crash because it was so pivotal to her being able to go through that recovery process because that moment of her eating all that hand sanitizer, being in the hospital, and then realizing what it is that she was going through and her being able to really like get help was important.
She didn't, like, some people want to eat the hand sanitizer to die, but she just ate it, and like that she, if she ate it, she'd have that clean feeling. And I thought that was like a unique way. Like John Green's show, like not all people with mental illnesses want to die. They just have all their different, like each person's mental is unique to them.
Yeah. Because it's not like she was trying to commit suicide. She was just doing it because she believed that she needed to do that to make herself healthy again. Because she was so worried about getting this one illness that it like became a paranoia and something that completely and entirely consumed her life.
Yeah, she wasn't doing it to die. She was doing it to live. It just
was
not the right thing to do.
And that's quite one of the things that's quite ironic because she's doing that to live, but it actually would be quite fatal to her. So it shows you how mental illness completely entirely changes your perspective, and it's like a sort of like mask in front of your vision, and you can't see like light from dark because you have this thing that's just covering your vision, sort of in your perspective, the way that you look at things or normally should look at things. So on a little bit of a different note, is there a book character from a non-John Green book that you think would mesh well with the characters in this book? I'm trying to think of other contemporary characters that would work well and like fit into the story well or be friends with the characters in the world.
That's hard because like unique to them. Like maybe you could take one, but like if you took a character from another author, it just wouldn't fit in because of the author's writing style and how they wrote that character.
Yeah.
Question.
Well, do you think any other characters from other John Green books would fit well in this story? Because I agree with you that, like, you know, other characters are written so different from John Green that, like, they wouldn't mesh, but maybe from his other books.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I don't know, like, some, my background, but, I don't know, if I had to take one of John Green's character and plop him into them, whoever, into this book, who would I, like,
I feel like someone from Paper Towns might
I don't know,
fit in.
I was thinking too.
Because, like, they're kind of, like, different and, like, almost, they're, like, not obsessive in, like, an OCD way, but, like, they're obsessive about, like, weird, different things.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they might fit in here. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's hard because I feel
Augustus or Hazel. Oh,
yeah.
What's the character, the blind character in The Fault in Our Stars?
Isaac?
What's his name?
It's Isaac, yeah.
I think he would fit into the story pretty well with that sense of humor. Like, he'd lighten up the scenes a little bit more. Like, he'd be a good friend. Like, I could see him fitting in.
Yeah. It's hard because I feel like all of John Green's books are so different in terms of their perspective and, like, the thing that's being discussed. And because of that, all the characters are so differently characterized. And it's hard to think about them, like, all being in a room together because they all are so unique and different from one another. Which I think really comments on John Green as an author, that he's able to create so many unique characters and he doesn't create the same sort of mold for each one of his stories. It's different each time. I'm trying to think about what else to discuss. There's so many things that went down in this book. I'm trying to.
Could you imagine if, like, you went to visit this childhood friend and you're thinking about, like, solving the case to get this money and he's just like, hey, here's $100K, please, like, leave it alone. Like, could you
I can't even imagine
doing that?
Right, because you can tell that she sort of felt uncomfortable with it. And then there was Daisy, who was like, we got the money, because that was, like, the one thing that she initially wanted. And she goes and immediately starts spending all of it. And Asa, like, hasn't really even touched it, because you can tell, because she has an attachment to Davis, that, like, she doesn't want
to like, use him for the money.
Or his money, right? Because she didn't even necessarily want to investigate it in the first place, knowing that this was her childhood friend. But I think definitely that's very unique, because I wasn't expecting that at all, for him to want to do that.
Yeah, like.
But she still sort of is investigating it for his little brother, because he's so distraught that his father isn't there because he's so young. And that moment, sort of when she puts it together and she the little brother gives her the notes that was on his dad's phone, and, like, that one thing, and how it's sort of sitting with her for a while, and she suddenly puts two and two together and she knows. And it's that moment where then she has to tell them, and they make that decision to tell and notify police or security or whatever, and all of that.
When they revealed that the father was dead, did you guys expect him to be dead, or, like, what were you guys anticipating for that?
I don't know. I feel like it just sort of made sense for him to be dead, because, like, at that point, like, if he was alive, you would have to bring his character into the story, and you would have to be able, like, if they were to find him, there would have to be, like, I don't know, something more there, where it just felt better, like, for him to be dead, because like if he was alive, there'd be more information there to find out from him, like why did he leave, why did he do what he did. So sort of just like leave that case closed because it wasn't really relevant to the story that he was telling. I feel like it was a smart decision to make. I don't know if I was necessarily expecting it, but I feel like it was smart, because that's sort of like the consequences then of like, now that he's dead, like all of his estate goes to this Tuatara. And is it for Davis and his brother, like the decision to make as to whether do they notify the like police or security or not, you know, knowing now that like this is on their conscience, knowing the truth now as to what's happening. Like it's up to them to make that decision, so they have more of the control in their hands, like the way that it was written, so they can decide what they want to do. So I just think that it was written smart.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it was a smart decision for the story. I don't know if I was necessarily expecting it though. I think I was kind of expecting him to just be this like billionaire who took off and is like living a separate life somewhere else, like totally just kind of like left his other life behind. I think that's kind of what I was expecting. And I honestly didn't think we were ever going to really like learn what happened to him. Like it was just going to be this open thing. So I'm kind of happy that it was like a case closed, but I don't think I was expecting that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so when I first went into this book, like just from reading the summary, because I wasn't like one of those people that was like, oh my god, John Green has a new book out. I was just like, oh, okay. And mental health was going to play into this book, and I thought, so what I thought this story was going to be, this girl had to help this boy go on this mission to find his father, and then somehow mental health issues played into it. I'm thinking this book was going to be about, and that's like why I was so confused about Turtles All the Way Down. But then like it's turned something completely different, and I'm so happy with it. So when he died, I was definitely, I agree, but for me, I was not expecting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think originally they talked about how mental illness was going to be featured in it, but they never really like made it all about that. Like the initial summary I think was just about how they were like searching for this billionaire, and I thought it was going to be this like weird fun little scavenger hunt, and it totally wasn't.
Yeah.
And
no,
I think the summary is like misleading, but I liked that.
Yeah. Because I feel like John Green isn't one of those authors that is like an E. Lockhart, for example, where their synopsises are like inherently vague and you just have to read the book to find out. I feel like usually you have a good idea of what it is that you're going into with the John Green book. But I actually feel like it's sort of fitting to have this really vague synopsis, because it's his first book out in like about 6 years, and nobody really knows what it is to expect now, because it's just this completely new era for him in writing this book and writing a story that's so personal to him, that it sort of makes sense that it would be a little bit vague, because you have to go into the book and sort of find out a little bit what it is, the story that he's trying to tell, and like what messages that he wants to send about mental illness, because you don't really get that from the synopsis. But as the book started to come out, that's the big thing that you're really hearing about, and so you sort of have to see how the mystery plays into the mental illness, because like the mystery's there a little bit, but it does get sidelined for a large portion. So that's why, like Emily mentioned, I did think that we weren't going to get a nice closed case. I figured that it was going to be a little bit left open because you're left hanging for such a long period of time, but it's nice how the two fit together, and I feel like the vague synopsis sort of fits that. See.
So, I guess one thing we kind of touched on, like one part was like what caused this fight, like whoa, words I can't form. That like how she was like, I have to work. You're constantly judging me. Like I had to work for everything. I had to get really know what it's like. Yeah, I get that you're in your head all the time, but like you don't real struggle is. But like she know what it's like privileged, but trust me, you are privileged. That like was like a scene that was like different of real life. We had like this girl with mental health issues, and then we had this poor girl, rich billionaire person with we had a lot of story. all tied so well together.
Yeah, and I think we definitely saw like a lot of different levels of suffering, because here you have like this billionaire's kid, and like everyone would think life is perfect, but he has to take care of his younger brother now, and his fortune and his land and everything is being left to this Tortora, and like his dad is missing, like all that struggle, and then you see the struggle with mental illness, and then you see just like the basic financial struggle. And like I think it's cool that you got to see all those different levels, and that like everybody struggles, and it didn't feel like, oh well, you shouldn't be complaining. Like everybody had a right to feel what they felt, and I like that we got to see those different levels.
Yeah, because again, that's the one big thing. John Green just knows how to write books that are very genuine and very humane. And he knows how to encompass every single aspect to the point where even the slightest detail about like your income status and your family situation and your mental health, like all these things that define a person, he is so able to perfectly encapsulate into his story with just the right amount of detail that something doesn't feel too overpowering, because obviously mental health is a big focus of the book, but he's able to fit in all these other tiny little aspects, and you just really have these three-dimensional characters that feel like they could be real, living, breathing, walking people on the earth, because they're just so not perfectly created, because obviously they're all flawed and they're going through lots of things, but the way that they're structured in order to feel like three-dimensional is very realistic.
They're perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
So get some more questions, like start wrapping it up a little bit, maybe?
Yeah, because I feel like we pretty much covered everything. You know, a lot of John Green books, the one thing that's kind of nice about them is that they're relatively short. This book's only like 286 pages. So it's one of those books where you can kind of like almost fly through it if you have the time, but you want to like read it and take like everything in. One other moment that I wanted to talk about is that moment where Asa and Davis were FaceTiming, and it was sort of just like them in the dark, and it was just sort of beautiful. What else was there? Something that I thought was interesting that I feel like...
Well, about their relationship, do you guys think it was like a good thing that they never really talked about like the mental illness? Like it was there, but they never really acknowledged it. Like it was just kind of like this happy little bubble. Or do you think they should have talked about it and gotten more involved into that aspect of it?
I think mention it in a way, sort of.
Yeah,
like she
but they
used,
kept
like,
trying.
a lot of analogies.
Yeah, but I mean, for the most part,
like, and he was like, he respected it.
No, go ahead.
Like he knew something was going on. He knew something was going on. He wasn't prying. Like she wasn't gonna pry into her life. And when they first kissed, that's when she like things got a little bit out of control with her mental health. Like I'm no way putting the blame on him, her mental health issues, like not her personally, but and so like I don't know how I feel about the relationship necessarily, because maybe if she was like maybe in a better spot with her mental health, then the relationship would be better. Because I don't know, like them, I feel like it's not something you'd be like, hey, I have mental health. No, it's not something like that. Like it's not something you can be like that about. It's something like people can't even explain it sometimes, and so them not talking about it, I don't know. It was kind of like, I don't actually. It's difficult to.
Yeah, because I feel like for me, I believe like they should have talked about it a little bit more, because it felt like they were skirting around the issue a little bit, where like she would bring it up or she'd give analogies or try to describe what it was that she was going through, but you know, you can't really describe it unless someone else knows what it's like to experience that too, which was one of the things actually when I was reading the book, I was sort of expecting for Davis maybe to sort of have this coming out moment where he's like, I go through it too, or like have him be able to sort of connect to her in that way, because I was expecting them to like come together in the end. I don't know why I was expecting that, but then it got to a point like a little over midway through where I was like, yeah, that's probably not going to happen. But they kept sort of skirting around the problem, and I feel like if they had actually taken a moment to sit down and sort of really talk about it it would have been a little bit, I don't know if it would have been better, but maybe she wouldn't have been as afraid. But clearly, you know, as a character and as a person, like, she had to be able to decide whether she felt comfortable with that. So I feel like the story was written perfectly to sort of describe what it was that Asa was going through at that moment. But I do think that it would have been interesting to see if there had been a scene where they like sat down and really talked about what it was that she was going through and had like a moment of really sort of confronting the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you guys.
Like Gabby said, I thought he was gonna.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Molly.
Well, no, I just agree with you guys. I think it would have benefited if they had talked about it a little bit more. I mean, maybe it wouldn't have, but I think, you know, like you said, they were kind of like skirting around it a little bit. But at the same time, like Emily said, like it's kind of like he wasn't prying and she wasn't prying. They were just kind of in this like happy space. And so I don't know. Like I think it could have gone either way. But I think it's interesting to think about how that might have affected it.
Yeah.
Like Gabby said, I thought he was connected, like he understood her, like in a way. We're gonna can't describe come out with words. I thought he was gonna be that he had come out with the mental health issue, but issue get that because like the beginning, I felt like they really connected.
Yeah. Because for me, like one of the things that was like if they had sat down and talked about it, I don't feel like Davis would have been unsympathetic at all. Like I clearly feel like based on like the moments that you do see where they do kind of slightly talk about it, he would have been sympathetic and like willing to listen. So I don't think that there was anything to be afraid of about her being judged. But I definitely feel like if she wasn't comfortable speaking about it, that was probably the reason why there wasn't the moment, why they didn't have that moment of confronting the elephant in the room, is just based on her own like mental health and like where she was dealing with this, that she probably wasn't comfortable really speaking about it and talking about it to another person. But I feel like based on where the story ends, there could possibly be a moment of conversation between them where she talks about what it was that she went through and sort of where she is now compared to them, like having a moment looking back on it. But in that moment, I don't think she probably could have talked about it just because her own mental health was so bad, as we see. And obviously leading up to the climax of it, that her, once she reaches her recovery, I think she probably could sit down and have that conversation. But I don't feel like Davis was ever really the problem of like him not being able to listen, because I think he would be more than willing to be sympathetic and understanding of what it was she was going through.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I have something that like may be able to tie the whole thing together and like wrap this up neatly. Like, how do you guys think about the ending? Like how she was like, you could physically see that she was overcoming her problem. So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah. I thought the ending was a little bit interesting because it's kind of like looking into her future a little bit. Like, I thought it mentioned something about her,
yeah, it's a few months later, I think in April.
Oh, like it's like page 285 where it says, but it turns out not to be terrible because I know the secret that me lying beneath the sky could not imagine. I know that that girl would go on, that she would grow up, have children, and love them, that despite loving them, she would loving them, she would get too sick to care for them, be hospitalized, get better, and then get sick again. I know a shrink would say, write it down how you got here. So you would. And in writing it down, you realize love is not a tragedy or a failure, but a gift. Sort of that moment where she looks on and like knows she's able to get through all of that. I think that's really beautiful in the way that he's able to encompass that it's just sort of like this weird sort of introspective thing where it's not like you're following the character in the future or you're following the character in the present, like once they've gone through their entire struggle. It's just sort of like a reflection of like she knows that she's going to be able to get over this, that she's going to have kids, and then a lot of these things that she was initially scared of, like that it's going to go away, that she's going to get better, and that she can sort of get through what it is that she's going through, which seems definitely very much sort of like a testament to probably what John Green is going through as an author, because like he has a wife and he has kids and he's living and he's, you know, getting through each day. And some days are good and some days are bad, and you get through and you move on and you do what you have to do. And I think that's a perfect way to sort of describe it, because him as an author, he's able to write something that's a testament to what it is that he's going through. And you consistently see that in this book. And I feel like the ending reflects that as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the ending was really beautiful, how it, like, you know, kind of gave us hope, like I said before, that like it didn't go away, it's still there and it still exists, but she has the ability to now see past it and see this hope of having kids and getting married and living life, and I think that's really beautiful, and I really liked the way it ended.
Yes. So if there's any last final questions or any like last final things to discuss, we can wrap up at about like what would be like 8:20 your time, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like 7:18 my time.
Yeah.
Give it like 2 more minutes to send in any last questions. One of the ones we really didn't talk about is like a character that's not a main character that you would want as a friend.
I would like to see like Noah's story. Like I could friend, but I would like him to have, like, let's see, while like same timeline as the story's going, like see through without a spot. I would like to see.
Yeah. Noah's the little brother, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why, because I kept calling Davis Noah, and I like needed to stop doing that because it's been a while since I picked this book up. But yeah, I think it would be interesting to see his perspective, because I feel like it mentions that he possibly was doing drugs at some point.
Yeah.
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 So I feel like to see his perspective
I
a
don't
little bit and what he
know
was
if
going
we
through would
don't
be
know if he was
interesting.
doing it.
Yeah, I thought they
Well,
mentioned it.
Yeah, I think they did. Like he was getting in with the wrong crowd or something.
Because of like probably of what was initially likely depression, because he lost his father, and like he probably, like, you don't really know whether he thought his father was dead or not, or if he had hope his father was still alive. And with him being at such a young age, like I think he was about to turn 13, like as a teenager, and just about to become a teenager, like that's a very difficult thing to go through. So I think it would be definitely, yeah, very interesting to see from his perspective, because
I
we don't
agree
really
with you
get a lot
guys.
of him.
Yeah, I think he would be very interesting. And I liked his relationship with Aza. Like, I like how it just kind of developed, and then she was, like, there for him. And it wasn't, like, always there and they weren't best friends, but, like, you know, she was there for him. And he gave her the notes and was, like, kind of putting his hope in her. And I think that was a sweet relationship that we got to see, like, little bits and pieces of.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of nice because, like, you're setting Aza up to be this character where she's so concerned about what's going on in her head that she can't even be concerned with her own best friend and what it is that her own best friend is going through, and she's kind of so in her own head that it's sort of a little bit to negate that and sort of show, like, that she can have, like, emotions or, like, feeling, not, I don't know what the word is, but that she can be sympathetic or caring towards another human being, and that she's wants to be able to be there for this little boy or who's about to be a teenager, and like she knows what it is that he's going through, or at least is sympathetic to what it is that he's going through. And I think it's nice to sort of see that it's not all black and white. Like she's not completely and entirely narcissistic and concerned with her own head, but she's not completely and entirely selfless either, where she's going to go and be concerned with what everyone else is going through either. It's like a nice mix of like black and white. So it's like this nice gray middle. And I feel like that's perfect because, again, with the 3-dimensionality, not all people are all narcissists, but they're not all selfless either. It's a mix of the two.
Yeah.
So I think that about wraps everything up for this live show. Thank you to everyone for tuning in and asking questions. We had a pretty good discussion. As for what our next book of the month is going to be, we're probably going to talk about it. I know we discussed Shadow Shaper, so we may do that. If we pick another book, we'll let you guys know. We have our Instagram link down below if you want to go and check that out. And we always have updates there and on our own Instagrams. And both of Molly and Emily's channels are linked down below, so you can check them out as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Do you guys want to say like any last things, any like promotions or things you want to talk about really quickly?
Follow me on my YouTube.
Same.
Subscribe.
Yay. And read this book if you haven't, because it's really good.
We probably just like spoiled it for you if you've been here watching it the entire time. But like, you know, if you're here, if you haven't read the book, I appreciate it. But yeah, read it again. It's a good book. I would definitely want to, like, reading this book made me want to reread more of John Green's books because I just like fell in love with his writing style again, and it was the best.
Yeah.
So we'll keep you guys updated on what we're doing for the rest of the year, and then we'll be going into 2018, which is insane how fast the year has gone by. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Have an amazing week. Goodbye.
Bye.